Wait.
Loretta, stop laughing now. We laugh.
I'm serious.
Maybe
I'm
later
serious.
we'll tell you what tickled Loretta to laugh like that. It was something I said. Anyway, hello. And welcome to another episode of The Missing Link in Your Healing. This is the podcast where we bring you the parts that might not necessarily be obvious to you, that you might not even know that you need in order to help yourself heal. We pride ourselves on bringing you a holistic view. You may not need every single one of them. We want you to take the ones that resonate the most with you so that you can become your own healer. Our topic today is healing requires us to be all in. We're going to look at what does this mean and why is it so important to be all in, to throw your book at healing. We discuss this, what it means to be all in no matter what, because it's not always easy to be all in. And we also look at why being all in can be very difficult. And lastly, we're going to offer you some tips because this isn't as easy as it sounds. It's very important and it's simple, but it's not always easy.
Right. So, as Antoinette said, being all in means committing to yourself and to your healing no matter what. I had a client yesterday and she was telling me about a boundary that she was struggling to put down with someone. And this particular client has cancer. And I just said to her, what would you do if your life depended on it? And she said, well, I would do X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, your life does depend on it. So do that. Okay. So being all in means committing to yourself and your healing as if your life depends on it, because I'm telling you now, your life does depend on it. No matter what you've got, it doesn't have to be a life-threatening illness. So being all in means making your healing your number one priority, regardless of what else is going on with your life. It means choosing healing and making it number one. Now, this seems obvious, but I work with a lot of people and I'm telling you it's not obvious because we've got all the reasons why we can't. And a lot of it is about it's selfish and, we've got all sorts of other things to do. We need to recognize those things that are stopping us and then choose to do it anyway. So choosing to heal and to commit to that, making it a project that you can dedicate yourself to, not something that you just dip your toe into occasionally. So, if you can make this as important as the most important thing in your life, then you increase your chances of being able to heal for sure. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop everything and that you can't carry on with your responsibilities in your life. However, it does involve making space for the healing. So some things are going to have to go lower on the priority list, and the healing is going to have to move up the list. So it also means that no matter what healing modality it is that you've chosen, you commit to playing a role in being your own healer as well. So if you give your healing 20% effort and 20% of your focus, you can't expect 100% results. So, this is a bit like pregnant or not pregnant. You're either healing or you're not healing. And the more effort and not effort necessarily, the more focus you give it, the more you're going to get out of it. It's like studying. If you only study 20% of the coursework for an exam and you expect to get a distinction, you're going to be disappointed. Healing is less like writing an exam and more like getting a PhD, right? There's many exams over a long period of time. So you do need to be prepared to be in it for the long haul. So you need to focus on your healing as if your life depends on it, because it does. And so no matter what. So what does that include? Well, it includes investing time, energy, money, and other resources in your healing. And this may mean having to give up other things, or asking your spouse, for example, to take more responsibility with your children, etc.
It means going the hard yard sometimes if we go all in. So we're not going to give too many examples here because as we go through this, it unfolds. This change does not happen in our comfort zone. So going all in means we are going to have some discomfort along the way.
Absolutely. It also means to choose to focus on your healing despite your doubts and fears. So you're going to have doubts and fears. You're going to have reasons why you think this might not work. You're going to be frightened that it won't work. You might be frightened of what the consequences are of, going on this healing journey, or what you may have to do or not do. And you're going to be frightened, and it's okay. It's about being able to recognize that you're frightened, having compassion for yourself, understanding that that is a normal response, not suppressing them, and taking action anyway.
Yes, and it requires committing to helping yourself to be your own healer rather than just giving your healer over to a doctor, homeopath, drug treatment, particular protocol. Loretta mentioned this earlier. We are not saying that you need to not do any of that. You can go allopathic to an oncologist if you have chemo. You can go natural and do your vitamin C drips or your fasting or Chris Beats cancer eating plan. But if you're not playing a role from the inside out of you to access your own healing power and becoming your own healer together with that, we're not saying you won't heal, but if you look at the radical remission survivors, I've talked about the radical remission podcast before. I'll put the link below, and there's a book. Every single one of those survivors who got through the incurable, mostly cancers, but all kinds of other awful things, each one of them took complete control over their own healing. A lot of them worked with doctors, a lot of them didn't, but every single one of them did not just listen to some authority outside of themselves. They worked alongside the authorities to help themselves heal.
Another point of this is to take a holistic view of healing. So, it's not a one size fits all, and it's unique to each person. It's multifaceted. So where does your healing lie? The healing that is unique to you. Your disease process is unique to you, and so is your healing journey. And this doesn't mean, as we said, you don't work with a doctor or do a treatment or have a coach or have a therapist or have a whole team, in fact. But what it does mean is that you do the work from the inside out. You play a role in your own healing.
Yes, and don't rush. Loretta often says this on our podcast, and it is easier said than done. I know that. I've had a brutal cancer, but don't rush into a healing modality straight away out of fear. Fear often drives our decision to rush into something, to do X, Y, Z that our doctor says, or our homeopath says, or our family thinks we should do. Sometimes it is more urgent than others, depending what you've got and how fast it's going. But I had a very fast galloping aggressive stage 4 cancer, and I still took 3 weeks to make the decision about what to do. I think there's always a bit of a gap, whether it's 3 days, 3 weeks, or even a couple of months. So that you have to decide for yourself, but take a bit of time to dig into your own intuition to see where your healing path lies. And go back to our podcast episode on intuition if you want to know how to do this. We did 2, actually.
Right. It is going to mean that you make your own choices and you choose your own path to healing. Even if those that you care about disapprove of your choices, don't let anyone try and force you to do what they believe you should do. And, everyone has an opinion when you get sick. And most people have an opinion because they care. So your nearest and dearest, they just want you to do whatever they think is going to keep you alive for the longest time. All right. And they want you to heal. And their fear can pressure you into making decisions that are not actually in alignment with what is true for you. So just recognize that. Recognize that it's coming from a place of caring, but it's also coming from a place of fear. And that you actually don't have to do what doesn't feel aligned with you. I've seen this a lot of time in my practice as well. The patient will come in and they'll say, I didn't want to have the surgery or whatever they want to do, but I was pressured by my family. And so now especially if the surgery's gone wrong, right? Then they're busy trying to recover. So they are more stressed because now they're in a worse position than what they were. And I'm not talking necessarily about life-threatening illness surgery, it's just surgery, right? And they're resentful actually towards the family member that they think forced them. And they're not taking responsibility for the fact that, it's your body, it's your health, and the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
It's your life. it can affect the people you love, but it is your life. And so if you are going to be the CEO of yourself, if you're the CEO, if you think of it like a company, you are the CEO of the company, and it doesn't matter what the managers think, actually, and it doesn't really matter what the what the workers, not doesn't matter what the workers think, but the buck stops with the CEO. When things go wrong, the CEO is the one who's the most accountable. So you are accountable for your healing journey, and this can be difficult, and so you don't have to be aggressive about it. You can just say, I know that you want the best for me. I understand that you want me to heal. I also want me to heal. So I just need some space to make this decision on my own. And sometimes you don't want to make this decision alone. Sometimes you want to bounce it off a partner or a friend. That's fine, but that needs to be your choice so that you can then stay in your power. And no matter what they say to you, you are ultimately the one who's making the decision.
And you're the one that has to live it. So I had been on a natural healing path for 32 years when I got cancer, as I've said before. But in the end, my intuition led me to choose chemo and a very brutal drug treatment. And being judged and excommunicated and crucified, in inverted commas, by other people isn't always on the allopathic side. The natural world that I got involved in were absolutely incensed with me because I chose something that wasn't part of that world, and they believed it was wrong, full stop. So, I mean, that leads into our next point, which we've already said, you need to access your intuition. So who would have thought my intuition would lead me to chemo? But that was exactly what I needed to do. Will I ever do it again? I don't know. The thing is, you also need to know that you may need to choose something, or your intuition will lead you to choose something that you didn't think you'd do or you've never done before. And I know Loretta's got a client who she had to take through that, who didn't want to do chemo, but her intuition, when Loretta guided it, said chemo was right. So that's when it can get very tough, when you've got pressure from the world you've hung in, whether it's your family or your friends or your tribe out there. But the stakes are so high when you're this sick that you've just got to go, well, I'm sorry for you, but I'm going to do this. And just to say, before Loretta moves on to the next point, it's all very well to say access your intuition, but I can tell you now that is not easy, especially when you're under pressure with a very bad illness or diagnosis. So using somebody like Loretta who can guide you through this would be absolutely amazing. I never had that, but if it happened to me again, I would use someone like Loretta so I can get there much faster.
Can I interject here, Antoinette? But you did go and see a kinesiologist, right? And the kinesiologist did the muscle testing, and the chemo came out of that, right? So you did actually get someone to help you.
I actually forgot about that. Yes, I was gonna go and do Gerson and fast in Mexico and all the stuff I'd always done to heal myself. And I went to a trusted kinesiologist. Thank you for reminding me. And my body screamed, please don't do that. Please don't do that. We need to do chemo and we need to find joy. And I was absolutely shocked and quite honestly confused. That's why it took me 3 weeks post that, you're right, to finally make the decision, because I was surrounded by people in the alternative healing world and everybody bombs you out of love. But boy, do people bomb you when you get cancer or have something really chronic. And they do it because that's what they believe in or because they think it'll help you. But a vitamin C drip was not for me. Chris Beats cancer was not my path, but a friend of mine healed herself that way. So it's not easy, but we have to switch off all that and access what's right for us, and then possibly get somebody to help. We'll actually definitely get someone to help us through that, because it's very hard to do that on your own. Yeah.
It's almost impossible to access your intuition when you're overwhelmed by fear. So that's part of the problem, right? And it's impossible to not get a diagnosis of a dread disease and not be terrified. So
of course, it's natural. And the doctors make it very alarmist. And sometimes you have to be alarmed. I mean, I had a galloping cancer that could have disabled me in a very short time. So, but yet again, it's about feeling that fear, being alarmed, and then doing whatever you feel you need to do next to find out what's right for you. So yeah, I was blessed to have a kinesiologist, and any of you listening to this are blessed to have Loretta.
So the next part of being all in is to have a true vision for your health, a vision for what you want in your life beyond your health. So a vision for your health, and why do you want to heal? Why would you love to be healthy? Why do you want to live? The why doesn't have to be about what you're going to do in the world. It can literally be about what kind of life you would love to have and what kind of person you'd love to be in the world. Like if you walked in the room, what is it that it's not about, what do you think, what do you want people to think about you? It's like, what kind of energy would you like to bring into a room, for example? That can be a why. And the more you have a truly heart-inspired why, the more it helps to pull you into the future. It gives you something that you can hook onto, especially when you're overwhelmed by fear or despair, or you're having side effects from your medication, whatever, all right? It is absolutely essential, because it's this that pulls you into the future.
And another thing to add here, which I didn't even think about when we were prepared for this, the kinesiologist also picked up that unconsciously I wanted to die. Now, people might go, oh, rubbish, everyone wants to live. That's ridiculous. Because it sounds so counterintuitive and counterlogical. We all physically want to survive. But I had done enough work for 30 years to know that I had to access my unconscious in any way. At that time, I had no idea how, but I just started meditating and visualizing and talking to my unconscious, because if it did really want to die, which a lot of people do unconsciously, I had very little chance of surviving. So I accessed it and I did want to die. So then I had to ask myself, well, why would I want to live? Why would I want to stay in this physical body? Because I was spiritual and I knew it would be fine to leave my body. I wasn't going to be in some terrible space. And for me, there were very, very mundane reasons. I mean, really mundane. Like I wanted to drink a good glass of wine. I've now had to stop drink alcohol. But at that stage, it was a good glass of wine, some great food, my feet on a beach. And I had a visualization that came about how I wanted to feel. It's about, how do you want to feel? What's this life? How does it feel? I had no idea what my next life would be. So, but yeah, that's very, very important. And also, so I've butted in there, but also one thing we need to do is take stock of our lives, all areas of our lives. And I don't think this is something you can do right up front, because right up front, you're trying to get into your intuition. What's my next step? What healing modality do I go for? Because 98% of people need outside help, whether it's natural, whatever, allopathic, a combination. We need some guidance when we're that sick. But later on, a very important part of your healing journey is to take stock of all of your life. And one of the first things that came to me when I was praying, stroke intuiting, because I really didn't know how to help myself heal, because I was already on a healthy path, is you need to throw out every single belief system you have and treat all of them, and you have to start again. Well, it was terrifying. It left me anchorless. And I then realized I had a lot of belief systems that were very absolute, and I thought they're all bloody marvelous. But as it turns out, some of them had to be brought back as they were. Some had to be brought back differently, and I had to bring in new ones. So yeah, we're not saying you need to do that right up front when you get a diagnosis, but it's going to be a very important thing to do.
Sure. And it's important to consider why you got sick, not so that you can blame and shame yourself, but so, if you can see how the progression happened, and this is also not something that you can do right up front. This is something that once you're into your treatment program and you've now got some time and you've created this space in your life, you can take stock of your life, as we said in the previous one. You can assess all the different areas of your life, and you can maybe start seeing patterns. Maybe you work too hard. Maybe you put everyone's needs before yourself. Maybe you pretend that you don't have needs. Maybe you don't dream. Maybe you don't make space for joy. Maybe you don't have enough adventure. It doesn't matter. It's different for everyone, right? So it's about it's not so much about like going, oh, well, I got sick because of X, because there's never only one thing. It's usually an amalgamation of many, many things. But it's about just asking yourself the question. So I've said this before in a podcast. Dr. John DeMartini said, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself.
Yes.
Most people don't ask themselves the questions, all right? So the question of like, why did I get sick is not, why did I get sick so that I can immediately punish myself? It's what could possibly have led to this? Which parts of my life, if I rated each part of my life on a score of 0 to 10, about just in terms of how much you were enjoying it, how many of those would score an 8 or higher? Not many for many people. And what's the pattern? There might be a recurring pattern or theme. Again, this might not be something that you can work out for yourself, but this is something that you can certainly find out and uncover with a therapist or a coach or a holistic, someone that can help you talk through it and guide you so that you can actually discover this for yourself.
Yeah, I think you get there much quicker with some good guidance. So for me, I couldn't figure it out. Some of it got intuited to me and guided, but a person brought me a psychoneuroimmunology book, as I've said many times. And when I started reading that book, I knew exactly a major trigger in my healing. It's never just one thing, as Loretta said. And I've always had a belief system, and I think this really helped me heal, is that if I get sick or some drama goes down in my life, any kind of suffering in inverted commas, that there's meaning in it. There's a point of growth in it. So I knew I had to figure out why I got sick or what a big trigger was if I wanted to help myself heal. So when I realized mine was suppressed emotions, limiting beliefs I didn't even know I had till then, because I had all these coping strategies, not feeling my feelings, being a people pleaser, codependent, passive aggressive. I've said all that. So that was my major focus for my healing, but that doesn't mean I didn't do a whole lot of other things. So finding your authentic voice, oh, that's something I really had to do. Oh my goodness, I had no idea how I was unable to be authentic, actually, and that I was doing so many behaviors and things to please people, to be liked, and I really didn't know that, because it also took me a while, years actually, to really figure out who I really was and what I really needed, and what really was the authentic me. And I'm still on that journey to a certain extent. So for some people that might come quite quickly, but often people in relationships or marriages or in jobs, in my case, in a business, that was another part of this. I didn't know what I authentically really wanted, and who I was. And in terms of the business, I didn't want to give up my salary every month, and everything else that goes with owning a successful business. But yeah, we need to give up the idea at some stage of who we think we are, and start taking a look at who we authentically are. But it is a process, and having someone like Loretta guide you, or somebody good, is really valuable.
Okay, so the next thing you want to do is, once you've checked out these various areas of your life, you want to just look at what takes up your time, your energy, and your resource, and what can you either drop or can you delegate? Can you ask someone to help you fetch your kids from school, for example? Can you arrange for, can you get ready meals 2 days a week, or whatever is within the ambit of what you're capable of doing. But before you can add the new things, you've got to make room. So once you've done this sort of life audit and you've realized that, maybe you spend a lot of time, energy, and effort keeping up friendships that aren't really reciprocal. Nothing clarifies what's important in your life as much as, well, your life might be at stake right now. So this is, again, it's like, if your life depended on if your life depended on cutting things out of your life, which of these things could you either let go or, as I said, delegate, right? So for some people that might be like Antoinette, you have to sell your business and you have to take that time out to heal and whatever it is. For some people, it might look completely different. And this goes hand in hand with getting the right help. And it's not just getting the right professional help, as in the right doctor or the right coach or the right therapist. This is about getting people to help you if you can. So again, organizing carpooling for your children if you've got children that are at school that need to be fetched and carried. It can be asking your spouse to have a more active role in what happens in your home. It could be asking a friend to cook a meal for your family once a week. It can look in a whole lot of different ways. And in terms of getting the right help for your healing, in terms of your professional help, I don't know anything about cars. Very little. I mean, I know how to drive one and I know it needs fuel and water. And I know terms like spark plug and battery and alternator, but I actually don't know what any of that really means. And I don't really know how to fix it if it was broken. So most of us have never been in a situation. First of all, many of us don't know how to create great health. We also don't know enough about anatomy and physiology, and we don't really know much about disease. And we've probably never been in a situation where we need the kind of help that we need now when we get a diagnosis. So that's why it's imperative that you actually get help, whether that help is your doctor and your medical team, as you said before, or whether it's your homeopath and your doctor, or whether it's your functional medicine doctor and your medical doctor and your oncologist and your coach. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you have to have 55 people, and you don't have to have them all at once. You literally can have one group of people at a time. So if you've got cancer, for example, and you decide you're going to have chemo and you're going to do the surgery and the radiation, you know what? You could do all of that. And once you've gone through all of that, or when you're getting to the end of that, you might go, okay, well, maybe now it's time for me to have a coach. I've had a client like that as well, who came to see me when they had completed the radiation. When they completed the radiation and they were, we were on the final, she was on the final stages of her oncology, her medical kind of treatment. She was like, okay, now I feel like I've taken care of the physical to the best of my ability, and now I'm ready to actually take care of more than the physical. So, when we say you need a team and you need help, it doesn't mean everything at once, okay? The people, in my experience, who try and do everything at once, they end up doing nothing particularly well, and that's a response to the fear. I've got to do everything, because it's a bit like, if I chuck everything, maybe something will stick. And that's a fear.
You're throwing the book at it doesn't mean you just shoot off in 200 directions. That's like the shotgun approach in marketing. It doesn't work. We have to be focused. So that's where getting some help with your intuition right up front and stepping into that space helps you to know what to do next and next. Because I only saw a coach, in fact, I think it was even after I finished chemo, actually. So, but the last point here is exercise your courage muscle and your commitment muscle. And that looks different for all of us. For me, it took so much courage to ask people for help. I am a single person. I was living on my own, and you have no idea how much courage it took for me to ask someone to drive half an hour to fetch me and drive another 45 minutes to take me to my oncologist because I was passing out. I mean, that might sound ridiculous to other people. And there's some commitment and courage muscles you are going to have to just develop, like making your body fit. Otherwise, it might just get too hard.
Right. Okay, so now we get to what's really important, right? And this is sort of a bit of a summary of what we've already said, and then a couple of other an extra points. So the first thing is to learn to connect to what you'd love to create in your life. I can't tell you how many people, when I said to them, so what is it that you really love? They go, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. That's why I've come to see you. Okay, so I don't know. Again, this is another part of John DeMartini's teachings. He said, I don't know very often means I don't want to look. And the reason why we don't want to look is because we're frightened that we're going to find something that seems so impossible that we can't have it, right? Because it creates pain for us. So, it's not just about like connecting to us and go, oh, yes, I'd love to do X, Y, and Z in the world, because the reality is you're here now. You've got what you've got right now. You're not at what you'd love. And that gap is really painful for us. So it's important that we learn to connect to what we love, and that we realize that even in connecting, there's going to be some pain in that, because you don't have it and you're not guaranteed that you're going to get it. So this is not like if you study really hard, you will pass the exam. You might study really hard and not pass the exam. It's the not knowing. The not knowing whether it's going to work or not induces a huge amount of fear. So finding and connecting to what you really love in life is essential, but it can be very difficult and it can take time. So everyone has a heart that is longing to create what it loves, whether you know what that is or not. Another way of saying that is that we all have a spirit, and the spirit, it's longing to express itself through each one of us in our unique way. Mm-hmm. So it is important, in order to connect to your spirit, that you truly get to know yourself, all the parts of yourself, your unconscious beliefs, the stories you have, your worldview, your fears, conscious and unconscious, how you speak to and about yourself and others, your thoughts, your feelings, your habits, how you think the world works. What do you think you're entitled to or not entitled to? What do you think you deserve and don't deserve? All right. All of those things are part of getting to know yourself. What parts of yourself can you not stand and are you ashamed and embarrassed about? And what parts of yourself do you absolutely love? Because all of that is information. So this takes time and practice. And above all, it takes a real compassionate self-awareness. So when you uncover, if I uncover, I hate the idea of being weak. But there's a part of me that is weak. And when I then judge that and go, yes, well, the reason why you're weak and why you hate being weak is because, you're not accepting. Okay, so the compassionate self-awareness is just recognize it and not make it mean anything. Don't make a story about it, all right? Don't allow that to pull you off course. So the second part of this is to get in touch with the part of you that is beyond your body and your mind, that is eternal, your spirit. It's connecting to what makes your heart soar. It's connecting to your relationship to the divine or universal law or energy or however you want to call it, right? It's really important that you have a sense of what it means for you to be human. And even if you don't really know what that is, do you have a sense of connection? Because loneliness and isolation creates more disease. So do you feel connected to nature? Can you connect to the earth? Maybe you might say, well, I'm an atheist. Okay, well, do you feel like you are part of the animal kingdom? And if you're part of the animal kingdom, are you part of the natural world? Well, absolutely you are. And so you are part, the trees breathe out oxygen, you breathe it in, and you breathe out carbon dioxide, and the trees breathe it in. You are 100% connected. And so exploring these relationships that we have either to the divine or to the earth and to what it is that makes our spirit or our heart soar is really, really vital.
And in fact, a journey like this can be what I called in my language a journey of sacred training, because I thought I was spiritually connected and I had a strong belief system, but oh boy, you must face death in a horrible way and know it'll bring to you what you really believe and what you don't. So in the end, I wanted to also say, as Loretta says, that maybe this doesn't always lead to cure, if that's a word we can distinguish from healing, because healing means I'm healed in terms of whatever happens next. And that might, for some people, they might go, oh, don't be ridiculous. I just don't want to have cancer anymore. But it's one of those paradoxes. It's one of those like oxymorons. You got to stay somehow on the bicycle of focusing on your vision and that life you want to be alive for. But also in some weird way, well, not weird way, you have to accept that actually you might get really sick and you might not live. Most people do live when they go through this kind of journey. I know, because I've done so much research on it. But it's very difficult when you're very sick and to access all of this. So one of the reasons my intuition wanted me to do chemo, I can tell you now, in hindsight, it's so obvious, is because it stopped me. It stopped me working, stopped me helping other people. It stopped me running around. I couldn't help my friend when she was trying to commit suicide. I lay on the lawn because I was so sick. I would never have stopped if I had gone the natural route, because it was a major coping mechanism of mine that I didn't know I had. And also I toughed out everything my whole life. I made my own money. I've healed myself always. I've traveled the world. I fixed my own car. And chemo made me so weak and so sick and so useless that I had to go, oh, wow, okay, so now I need help. I need someone else to help me, like my friend to fetch me. And I can't do anything else today except lie on the lawn and be sick. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so why is being all in so difficult to do? Well, the first thing is that our modern medical healing paradigm and even some alternative healing practices focus on the physical and fixing the disease condition. It's all about the disease. And so we're not actually focusing on creating health. Now, you might say, well, Loretta, fixing the disease does imply health. But you know what? Health is not an absence of disease. Health is much more than an absence of disease, and focus creates your reality. So when you're focusing on fixing the disease, you're actually still focusing on the disease. Also, we very often in our Western medicine paradigm, we have like a one size fits all, right? And we have this idea that the doctor or the healer is the authority and the patient has to basically be like the compliant sheep. And so now we're back to you can have a collaborative relationship with your doctor, your oncologist, your healer, your therapist, whatever it is, but it's a collaboration. It's a co-creation. It's not a they tell you what to do and you just slavishly follow suit, all right? So because we've been so programmed into giving our power away to anyone in authority, it makes it difficult to be all in, because for most of us, all in means listen to whoever's cleverer than I am and do whatever they tell me.
Yes. And we have alluded to this, but we must, or we are going to have to swim against the stream often on this healing journey. And that's not just going up against doctors, friends, but it could be our own family, society in general. I don't think we need to say more because we gave some examples earlier on, but no, that's why you need a courage muscle. You need a commitment muscle. If you're all in for your own healing, you're going to have to accept that you're probably going to have to swim against the tide, and that's not easy. Because we don't want to fail. We don't want to be laughed at. We don't want to be criticized for our choices. We don't want to go against popular norms. We don't want to fail or be rejected for our choice. Swimming against the flow is difficult, but this is the place where extraordinary things happen.
Absolutely. The third reason why this is difficult is because, I mean, understandably, this is a very logical thing. You just want the disease to go away and you want to fix it. But when we want it to go away and we want to fix it without understanding the message or the gift in the disease, that's when we're robbing ourselves of the opportunity. So those examples that Antoinette gave about, like, you know, she sees why this had to happen because her belief system was that there is a hidden gem in this. So when you are looking beyond it just going away and fixing, and you're asking yourself, what could it be meaning? Not what does it mean about you, just what is the message or the gift? What is it trying to give me? Because on almost every single person who's had a significant healing, their lives have changed. Their worldview, the way they, not necessarily, it's not like they divorced their husband and, you know, started a new business or whatever. Some people, but those are in the minority. It literally can be that the way in which they look at the world is no longer the same. And the way that they see themselves and the way that they see how they fit into the world is not the same any longer. So that can be the message and or the gift. And so when we ask ourselves, what is the gift? And we and that is something that unravels over time. And the gift can have multiple layers and multiple facets. Then we get closer to healing. But the wanting to fix it and wanting it to go away, that's the stumbling block, right? Because that seems almost counterintuitive. Well, the truth is, if you find the gift and you find the message, it doesn't mean you don't want it to go away. It just means that you're looking beyond what it is on the surface and you're actually finding meaning in it. And the other reason why this is hard is because we want a quick fix and someone else to solve our health problems. I said to a client this morning, and I mean, she's a young woman that I adore. And I said to her, oh, I wish I was just a fairy godmother that could wave my magic wand and this could all go away for you. It was like a heartbreak story, right? And so of course I wish that. And she wishes that too, but we both know that that's not possible. So we want a quick fix and we want someone else to solve our health problems. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So we are repeating things a lot in different ways, but I think we're just trying to get these points home. So not wanting to get out of our comfort zone is big. If we want to heal, we have to pay a price in inverted commas. It's like if your leg's broken, you have to have the operation, which is uncomfortable, in order to have a fixed leg. But usually we are scared, or often we're scared, that the price is going to be too high or too difficult. It could be as simple as we have to give up sugar or alcohol, and we just don't want to do that, and we have to change our diet. But it could also be leaving a job that doesn't serve you. A lot of the radical remission stories, well, not all of them, but some of them, people realized they were just on the wrong track. Some people have to change the nature and the quality of their relationships, and that's scary because we're scared that people will leave us. I had to ask my business partner to carry our business for a year, and in the end, it was part of the reason I needed to give up the business, because she basically took over. But it was a risk I had to take. I knew that.
And then I have mentioned this, but we don't want to face the grief of not having the health that we've lost. We don't want to actually face the fact that we are gutted, that we were healthy and that we're not any longer. We don't want to face the truth of where we are right now, because it's painful for us. That gap between wanting to have vibrant health and living your life fully, and your current reality, which might be that you feel like you're trapped and you're terrified by the disease, that gap can sometimes be so big that we would rather avoid the pain of facing that. And so instead of facing the pain and then focusing on the healing, we just go straight to the healing, and we become these positive warriors who never are down, and we uplift everyone, and we're still doing everything we ever did. And sometimes we heal in the short term, our signs and symptoms go away, which is actually not healing, and then it comes back. All right. Or it comes back differently, or something else comes back in its place. Right. And that's an indicator very often of, when I say it's not an indicator, it's the avoidance of the truth. We first have to accept the truth as it is. And that includes the pain. And then when we have the vision, we can start working towards creating the vision. So not wanting to face the grief and the pain is another reason why this is difficult for us, and why many of us don't go all in.
Yeah, and anyone who hasn't yet read Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No, he has a lot of patient case studies. And every single one of them in the book, he says, are people that have to really change something. They're all different things. So that book's really worth it, just to hear real life stories of people that have been on this journey. And even, yeah, okay, let me not go any further. Fighting cancer or fighting a disease, we have been so conditioned and programmed to do that, especially those of us that are strong people. And the people that get through illness, by and large, and get through it well, are strong people. But I knew right up front, and I don't know how, it's just been part of my journey, that if I fight this cancer and I make it my enemy, if I try and conquer it, cancer can be beaten, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to be strong, I knew I would be in trouble. So I actually made friends with my cancer, and I communicated with it. And I mean, although I have seen friends of mine who beat cancer, they fought it, they refused to stop running or doing anything, and they're still alive. But certainly for me, that wouldn't have worked.
Another big reason why we can't go all in is because we don't want to do the work, only because, not because we're lazy or because there's something wrong with us, but just because we've been programmed and socialized that we can have quick fixes, right? And this is not just from the allopathic point of view. It can be from the self-help and the spiritual world as well. It can all just be love and light. We focus on the positive. We just have a really good attitude and everything will be okay. When you are putting on a positive attitude, when you're actually not feeling positive at all, there's a disconnect between how you're behaving and what's actually happening in your physiology. And it actually throws your whole autonomic nervous system out of balance, and you can't heal when that's happening. All right. So we're worried about what we have to do. And the truth is, we do have to do the work, whatever the work is for us. All right. If we're all in, and this takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes commitment, and it takes discomfort. It's going to be uncomfortable. And it's not comfortable. And it's not easy, but support and challenge are always equal. So I don't know why I'm got so much of John DeMartini going through my head today. But he always used to say, support and challenge is equal. So if you seek challenge, get out of your comfort zone, go to where it's uncomfortable. You have to attract support along with it. because the two have to go together, right? So if you're in your current situation and you've got what you think is only challenge, you have to look for where's the support in the current situation. And that can sometimes be the blessing or the gem or the magic in whatever it is that's going on. And when you actively look for challenges, getting out of your comfort zone, doing something that isn't comfortable for you, then you will automatically attract the support also. So it is challenging and it takes effort, but it's not without its support, is really what I'm trying to say.
The support, it was in that quote you sent me, but we might not have time at the end. But once we step out of our comfort zone and we say yes to that discomfort and to moving out of it uncomfortably even, we seem to get what we need. I mean, really, I've seen that over and over again in my life. Is sometimes it's like magic or miracles. So that is the place where the magic happens. And just to say, one of the reasons it's so hard for us, all of this, is because pathways are wired into our brain from childhood. And Loretta and I have spoken about this a lot in our earlier episodes. So go back to the episodes on the unconscious and all those early episodes we did. What worked for us when we were kids creates neural pathways in our brain, and we have to build new neural pathways. And for some of us, that means for everybody, actually, if you listen to the neuroscientists, we have to forge a new pathway in a big jungle of our brain. To create new habits is hard. It takes time and it takes struggle, full stop. That's why all this bypassing stuff, Loretta and I really don't like, because you cannot create new pathways in a jungle by meditating or journaling or anything. You can do all of that together with having the axe to cut the grass, because it will make that easier, but you ain't gonna forge a path through a jungle just with bypassing.
And I just want to add that, I mean, so we're talking about it's hard and it's a struggle. It doesn't mean that you cannot appreciate the moments of joy that do exist in the day.
Oh,
It doesn't
yes.
mean
In fact,
it doesn't mean you can't
absolutely.
be happy. It doesn't mean that you can't dance. It doesn't mean that you can't listen to your music. It doesn't mean that you can't appreciate the hug from your child, all right? So the support is always there. You might just not be as aware of it because our tendency is to fixate more on the challenge, right? So yes, it's going to be difficult and there is going to be a struggle. But you know what? Those moments of joy and connection, they still exist. And we want to seek those out as well.
Oh, that is so, thank you so much for adding that. The first time in my life I felt joy, and this is the honest truth, was when I had cancer at 56 and I was extremely ill. It's like it's that natural part of ourselves that Loretta always talks. We always talk about that part of ourselves. We access the higher part of ourselves. That's when joy naturally resides and peace. And sometimes when we're in extreme pressure situations, it's like we suddenly just access that part of ourselves. And in fact, it was on my cancer healing journey. I had a tough time with chemo and the whole journey, but that was also when I started dancing, when I started downloading music that I just loved, when I started going to do things I never would have done in between being sick. So yeah, it's both. So thank you, Loretta, for reminding us of that.
You're welcome. So another reason why we struggle to go all in is because we're terrified of what we might find out about ourselves and what we won't like. Or we don't want to go and dig around in our past trauma. Or we don't want to change the story of what happened to us because then we can't have our sort of righteous indignation or whatever it is that we're clinging on to. And so this is a big thing because it's a big fear because your ego is identified with these things. And we think that this is part of what makes us who we are. And it does partly make us who we are, but it doesn't make all of us. It doesn't make us, when we allow it to define us, it's trapped us. And so we're frightened of what we might find, and we're frightened of digging around in our trauma. But the truth is, if you're here, you've survived all of that. So it can't possibly be worse than the actual physical experience of it, right? And there are ways of doing that don't have to be harsh and exceedingly painful, or they can be painful, but they can be held. Someone else is helping you with that. They can be held in such a way that you can actually get through that. So I think this is maybe one of the biggest stumbling blocks for not actually doing the internal work.
You're right. And for me, it's been rough. Loretta knows, and people who have followed my podcasting for however long, it's been rough because for me it was rough. However, as Brene Brown talks about, so access her work, if you don't know her, I'm sure you do, is that on the other side of the uki comes the joy. On the other side of shame is, so yeah, I've had to look at a lot of very tough stuff and past trauma. But the one mistake I made, which I can reflect to you, I don't know if it was a mistake, but at the time I couldn't find the right help to do that work. And I think I could have got through it much easier and quicker if I'd had access to the right help. So it's important to get the right help. And it's important to know that when it feels that uncomfortable, or you see something about yourself that you don't really like, on the other side of that, honestly, not just in a boom, boom second, but on the other side of that lies the joy and the peace and the best life.
Okay, number 11.
So yeah, I think it's just really, we've kind of said this, but we need to stay curious and open in a compassionate way. And Loretta pointed this out, and she points it out to me. It's a very valid point. We must be very careful that we don't think we already know it all and that we don't need to do the work because we've already done so much work. This has been a big thing Loretta's brought to me recently. So yeah.
Right, so we're going to wrap this up with a few tips for being all in. And some of this is a summary of what we've said, but it just puts it all together for you. So the first one is make healing your primary goal, a project, make it your work, right? It's your life's work. Find your path to healing and throw everything you have at it. Know that the path to healing is not linear and it's not the same for everyone. Don't give your power away. You are more powerful than you know. Choose boldness. Don't be afraid to swim upstream. Get to know yourself, audit your life, your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your worldview, your stories about your past. Antoinette said she had to throw all her beliefs out and start again. All right. Now that can sound really daunting, but that's also really freeing. Imagine you can actually free yourself of all those things that have kept you caged, and you can just get a whole lot of new ones. I mean, I don't. It doesn't sound all bad to me.
It can be scary in the beginning because the anchor of those absolute beliefs, I was a very absolute person, holds the boat secure. But once the anchor's gone, it feels scary. But then the boat has the freedom to go where it needs to go. So, yeah. So figure out where your bliss lies. What is your potential best life? Now, not anybody else's life, not what some healer tells you or YouTube. Anita Majani said this, and when I first heard it, I was absolutely incensed, but I get it now. Not everybody has to stop eating cake. For example, some have to accept that eating a slice of delicious cake on the beachfront occasionally is where their joy lies. So it's different for all of us, but your bliss, your best life may not lie where you think it is, or where you're being conditioned to think it is, or what other people have led you to believe. And that's also a benefit of working with someone like Loretta that can help you access the unconscious and to look at what you really, really want. Because sometimes we think we know what we want, but it's not actually what our souls want. So it's important for us to stay curious. To stay curious, it's something I haven't done well. I find myself saying, oh, I know it. But I've realized now we have to stay curious always, even after you healed. Healing doesn't end when you're no longer sick. Get professional help. I'll tell you what, without the right books, coach, podcasts, all of that, I would never be here right now where I am. So, and unfortunately, in my later journey recently, I didn't get the right help until I did recently through Loretta and someone she referred, and it has changed my life 80% turnaround for the better. So thank you, Loretta. We have to be brave enough, as we said, and we have to be vulnerable enough. Vulnerability is not something we've been taught, actually. Get your friend to look after the kids, as we've said. Ask your husband for some time off, etc., etc. We've been through all that. It also requires saying yes more. Anita Majani brought this to me. I didn't realize how often I was saying no. Say yes to life. What does that mean? Say yes when someone wants to help you. It's different for everybody, but for me, I couldn't receive help. I wanted to always help others. To allow into your life what really, truly inspires you. Sure, that was a big one for me. I thought I was on a path that was inspiring me and I was doing well, but it wasn't what I really wanted to say yes to. We have to figure that out, and that can take time. And that's where working with someone can also help access it quicker. Not feeling bad about looking after yourself, saying what you need, and saying no to others. We've said this probably 3 times today, but it is big. In Gabor Mate's book, almost every one of his patient case studies, people had to change something on that level in order to heal. And Loretta said, and this is very true, and this is another gift illness brings us inadvertently: make space for solitude. Make time in nature for contemplation. Nurture supportive relationships and be part of a community. These are often things we're too busy to do until illness stops us in our tracks.
Absolutely.
So, Loretta, I don't know if you want to end off with anything, maybe with that lovely quote you've got there.
I do, actually. I want to say that after all of this, all right, it starts with choosing it and committing to yourself and committing to your healing. You might not know how, you might not know who, you don't know who's going to help you, you don't know which healers are going to go to, you don't know anything, right? But until you choose it, choose your healing, choose to commit yourself to the healing, that's the first step. And once you take that first step, you'll be amazed at what happens. And so I'm going to read this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes by W.H. Murray. It's often attributed to Goethe. It's not a Goethe quote. And this is how it goes. Until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence, with a capital P, moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now.
Brilliant. And I think that's an awesome place to stop.
Thank you so much. We'll see you again next week.
Yes, thanks, Loretta. Thanks, everybody. Bye.